fascinates me about the process of sketching, painting, is the same thing that fascinated me when I'm writing and also when I'm acting, and that is you see things come out of you. You go, wow, where did that come from? When something comes from inside you and it's an image that resonates, or a set of images, or images set in a situation that have a narrative in terms of a question posed or a conflict depicted. That's like writing a story and going, wow, isn't it interesting that the character is dealing with this, that, and the next thing? Because I'm dealing with this, that, and the next thing. So, in a lot of ways, experiencing my creativity in whatever I'm working on is like a meditation on being present and witnessing my existence. That to me is the place we all try to get to, because witnessing is, without judgment, is the journey that keeps us present. And I could get lost in this for 6-7 hours at a crack. Well, I think I'm, I guess what people would call a creative person. For some reason people delineate between creative and non-creative persons, which is unfortunate because, we're all creative. The guy who tightens a bolt in your car engine is creative. Everyone is trying to experience themselves in some way, and that experience of one's existence is, when it happens, when you do experience it, is a creative moment. So I was spending my whole life being creative, and I was surrounded by a lot of art when I was young, and I responded to it, but I don't think I responded in a very articulate way. I knew I had a visceral response to it, but it definitely had an influence on me, and I was always encouraged to paint, to draw, and to, but I never had any formal training. As a matter of fact, I guess I rebelled against formal training. When I wrote my second book, and my daughter said to me, I ought to illustrate it. I thought, well, what do I know about illustrating? Well, I'll try it. And I started messing around with it, and all of a sudden I found I had yet another avenue that I could, a creative avenue that I could explore. And not only another creative avenue, but a creative avenue that allowed me to do it by myself. Not dependent on another person to say, okay, here's a film to direct, or here's a, it was more along the lines of my writing. I've really enjoyed being a student. I've really enjoyed the learning process. I'm not trained as a draftsman. I don't have any formal training as an artist, and I have to learn it all. Every new piece I come up with has new intricacies and new problems that I don't know how to do right away, and so I'm in a process of trying to learn how to do it as well as do it in a way that works. Anytime I can learn, anytime I can be in a learning posture, I'm much happier. I'm much happier asking the questions, because one problem about answering a question is it becomes a finite thing, the answer. The question is not such a finite thing because it's more an indication of process, and you have to think and go, oh, I wonder what's that about? Where does that live in my being? Well, if I have an idea about something, or if I see an image and it elicits a response from me, and the response, sometimes the response is, wow, that's intense, and I just try to honor that and not question, not do anything with it. And other times I'll take an image and I'll go, well, what is that moment like when you're about to go down a roller coaster? And how do we all respond to it? So you end up with a fair degree of whimsy, because that's just who I am. That's part of my makeup. Is I try to find the humor. There's a wonderful expression that I heard a long time ago, which is you want to tickle an audience with a feather before you stick them with a pin. The humor in life is what allows us to find our vulnerability, so that when you have this, when you wow, look at this and all these interesting people and the humorous reactions, and this guy's face being pulled, distorted by his girlfriend's fingernails, and being throttled by her, and she can't bear to look. And he's gloating and watching her holding on to this bar so tightly, and you have all this going. And now you're getting in touch with that all that humanity, and then you expose the viewer to where they are, and all of a sudden that void becomes much more significant. And it's interesting because I've been trying to figure out whether to call this painting the monster or to call it epiphany, because that is an epiphany. It's like you face your mortality, which is basically what happens when you go down a roller coaster. And this particular roller coaster, I don't think anybody's going to survive that fall. So. But it's how you interpret it, you know. And sometimes I'll do a piece like a drawing of the man with the kids, and that will elicit a different response that in and of itself. The interesting thing about sketching is that it's got a shorter execution time, at least initially, in terms of fleshing out the concept. And so if you see that you're drawing a perplexed face, you stay with that and you try to honor that perplexity and find it, and then try to leave it and let it be by itself. The thing I try to remind myself of and I try to honor is that the basic impulse is to communicate. The basic human impulse is to share. I feel like this. Do you feel like this? This is what this looks like to me. Does it part of you that sees the humor in this, the sadness in this, the tragedy, the this, that, the next thing? It's a journey of sharing my experience of existence with somebody. And that's not always an easy thing to do. When you're an actor on the stage, that's one thing. When you're an actor in film, that's you up on the screen. And it's very hard to separate yourself from your own narcissism, which we all struggle with. When it's a piece of art or a book, the interesting thing about me, about my writing and about my painting, is that I have a tremendous sense of that it's well done. It may not be, sure, it's got, there may be problems with the draftsmanship or the perspective, the proportion. You know, I'm learning those all the time. But in terms of the solidity of the image, in terms of what it is that I'm communicating, I really feel good about it. And when I feel good about it, it helps lessen the fear of disapproval, because we all deal with that. You know, we want everyone to like what we do. We want them to get it. I was showing my piece of pugilist to somebody yesterday, and they looked at it and they went, huh? Yeah, well, yeah, okay. So, wait a minute, that's not a wow, that's not a light bulb going on. That's that is that's telling me about that person's ability to perceive. That's telling about what they're able to see and what they're not able to see. So, the short answer to your question is of whether how does it make me feel? It's both scary and exciting. It's scary because I want people to be able to like it, on one hand. On the other hand, I already know that I like it. So, the notion that it can help anybody experience their humanity and make this a better world, because that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to identify our commonality. We're trying to identify our purpose in the experience of this thing called existence. We're trying to understand our fear and our sadness and our loss and our happiness and our excitement, and that's what we want most. So that's, to me, my work and my meditation, which it is like a meditation for me. It is a meditation for me, is to try to constantly experience that part of me that's a part of you, that's a part of everybody, that sense of being, without judging it, just being. And I think that hopefully contributes to the music of the spheres and the harmony of the universe, or balance, or whatever we want to call it. Because man's fearful instincts certainly has us experiencing the opposite right now, especially.